Wednesday Palaver. Wednesday Palaver is being live streamed on Facebook and I suppose also on YouTube. And there's a program which is designed to facilitate the discussion of local and international events. This program originally was hosted at the Freedom Center, and it happens every Wednesday evening, and everybody is invited to participate in Wednesday Palaver. As a result of the COVID situation, we decided to move it to the studio to enable us to observe all the protocols associated with curbing COVID-19. So here we are in the studio of Pan-African Television discussing local and international issues. Today, we are going to be discussing a very significant development in the history of Ghana, and that is the verdict of the Supreme Court on the compilation of a new voters register. We had thought that this topic could be better discussed if we had a technical trained lawyer with us. Unfortunately, in spite of all the efforts we have made, our guest was unable to show today. But the discussion must continue. So we're going to change the format of the discussion slightly. I'm going to try and to examine the matters that went before the Supreme Court, to look at the decision of the Supreme Court, and then to try and figure out how that can impact on the politics and the lives of Ghanaian people. And then I'll do that very briefly, and then after that, we shall engage the studio audience in a conversation. You at home are also invited to join us by raising questions and making comments through a WhatsApp platform, the number of which will be displayed on the screens. And also, you can join us on our Facebook page. Now, what are the issues? Why did we have to go to the Supreme Court? It must be recalled that before the 2016 elections, there were some contentions about the voters register. I recall that the current Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahmood Bawumia, held a press conference at which he disclosed that a large number of people on the Ghanaian voters register were also on the Togolese voters register. And he suggested that there were too many aliens on the Ghanaian voters register, and therefore the voters register had to be changed or reviewed. This posturing presented a number of difficulties, because there are Ghanaians on the voters roll of the United States of America. There are Ghanaians on the voters roll of the United States of America, of Germany, of Netherlands, and so on. There are Ghanaians who vote in many countries across the globe. Why did our Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahmood Bawumia, single out Togo? And that's very difficult to explain. Perhaps he's the only person who can explain why it is all right for Ghanaians to vote in the United Kingdom and vote in Ghana, and there's no problem with that. Why it is all right for Ghanaians to vote in the Netherlands and also vote in Ghana, and there's no problem with that. And why there's a big problem if Ghanaians who vote in Togo vote in Ghana. So far, there has been no clear explanation. Now, this battle went up and down and so on, and it even led to a situation in which some citizens of Ghana actually went to the Supreme Court seeking asking the Supreme Court to set aside the voters' register completely or to delete the names of those who registered using the National Health Insurance Card as a base document for the registration. Subsequently, the Supreme Court agreed that those who registered with the National Health Insurance Card as a base document should have their names deleted from the voters' register. The Electoral Commission then decided or reported that it had done exactly that. And we went for the 2016 election with this cloud behind us and so on. Now, it is interesting that at the end of the December 2016 elections, the very forces, political groups, and influence in our country which were opposed to the use of that register for election emerged victorious. Whatever they saw as the deformity of the register did not prevent them from securing what they themselves described as a decisive victory. Indeed, the New Patriotic Party and its candidate claim that they got the votes, their votes, and the votes of their nearest opponents. The difference was 1 million votes. And they claimed that in recent history, this has been unprecedented. Now, as we speak, the New Patriotic Party continues to exercise the sovereignty of the people of Ghana on the basis of that mandate which was secured with a register that they thought was deformed. However, it was clear before and during the 2016 elections that the New Patriotic Party had an agenda to alter the existing register or to set it aside and to compile a new voters register. And I think it's important that we keep this in mind. It's also important to keep in mind the fact that the chairperson of the Electoral Commission and 2 other commissioners had to be removed from office on the basis of a petition which was submitted to the head of state, His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Now, what is significant is that some other petitions have been submitted to the President for the removal of office of persons who can only be impeached. And as we speak today, those petitions have not been acted upon. And the one petition that comes to mind is a petition which was submitted to the President in relation to the then Chief Justice, calling for the removal of the then Chief Justice. No action was taken on the petition. Now, this is significant to the extent that governments and its advocates have argued that in cases of impeachment, petitions for impeachment, the President only acts as a post box, and that the President cannot question the content or validity of those petitions. He only passes those petitions on to the appropriate authorities for action. And yet, other petitions were not treated in the same manner, raising substantial questions about motives behind the petition and so on. But that we can put aside for now. The point is that 3 commissioners, including the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, were removed and replaced by 3 new government appointees. Of course, under the law, it is the President who has the power to appoint an Electoral Commission, and that Electoral Commissioner is subjected to vetting by a parliament currently, which is also dominated by representatives from the political party of the President. Be that as it may, we have 3 new commissioners on the Electoral Commission. Interestingly, this commission had made pronouncements to the effect that the voters' register which was used for the 2016 election was perfect. Indeed, one of the commissioners is on record to have said that the voters' register was very credible. And he made that statement at a point when this country was heading for a major referendum on whether or not municipal and district chief executives should be elected or should be appointed. At that time, the commission's position, official public position, was that the voters' register was credible and usable for that referendum. Now, it is important also to recognize that beyond the fact that this register is the register which was used to elect the current president, members of parliament, and so on, this is the same register which has been used to elect members of the assemblies at the local level. And we have had no problem whatsoever with their mandate. Then all of a sudden, we were told that this register could not be relied upon. Indeed, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission made a public statement to the effect that there were the names of 1 million dead people on the register. Very definite statement. And the retort from well-meaning sections of our society and so on was simply this: if you know the dead people on the register, simply remove them. Initiate the processes for their removal because you know them. You cannot make a definite statement about 1 million dead people on the register if you don't know who they are. You can only make that statement if you know who they are. So the refrain from the public was, take the names out if you know them. Unfortunately, those names have not been taken out. The other interesting aspect is simply this: that no matter when and how you compile a voter's register, a few minutes after the compilation of the voter's register, there will be dead people's names on the register. So at every point in time, there will be dead people's names on the register. Now, if you were to say that because we have dead people's names on the register, we should change the register, then for every election, we'll be changing the register and so on. And there's something else which is interesting. I mean, ever since I became aware of myself in the political space, all kinds of people, including leaders of the New Patriotic Party, have argued that it is absolutely wasteful to have a separate card for election, have another separate card for health insurance, have another separate card for social security, have a separate card for insurance, and so on. And that it is sensible, it is prudent to consolidate all of these cards into one. One card which establishes your identity as a Ghanaian, one card which enables you to access health insurance, one card which qualifies you as a driver, the same card which enables you to participate in elections in Ghana. And this debate has been going on for more than 40 years. And it seems to me that there has been general agreement on the consolidation of the many cards that we have. Okay. Now, what is significant is that from the day the 1992 Constitution was promulgated, from the very day that the people of Ghana voted to accept the 1992 Constitution as the basic law of Ghana, all of us knew that there will be elections on 7 December 2020. So the 2020 elections has not come to us as a surprise. It cannot come to us as a surprise. We've had about 27 years to plan for the 2020 elections. So how come that for 20-something years, we have not been able to do what we all agree is sensible, consolidating the cards into one card? That's a question that all of us may have to grapple with. Now, be that as it may, very interesting statements have been made by leaders of all the political parties. Indeed, all the leaders of the political parties have said or made statements to the effect that there can be nothing wrong with the old voters' register. One of the most prominent and important people to have made this statement is the chairman of the campaign team of the New Patriotic Party, my own friend and brother, Mr. Peter McMahon. Mr. Peter McMahon is on record to have said that with or without a new voters register, and mark his words, with or without a new voters register, the New Patriotic Party can win clean, credible, and fair elections on December 7th, 2020. This can only mean that even with the old register, it is possible to organize clean, fair, and credible elections. Of course, the National Democratic Congress has made statements to that effect. And even parties which appear to be hankering, to be struggling for a new register, all have said that they can win elections with the old register. Credible elections with the old register. So if it is possible to win credible elections with the old register, why are we beating ourselves and getting into tantrums and so on about the compilation of a new voters register? Now, this debate has gone on for about 6 months, maybe more. Now, in the process of this debate, the National Democratic Congress then decided to go to the Supreme Court for an interpretation of the Constitution. They decided to go to the Supreme Court to test the law on the compilation of a new voters register. Now, what were the issues that they presented to the Supreme Court? The National Democratic Congress looked at Article 45A of the 1992 Constitution and sought an interpretation from the Supreme Court. And Article 45A of the Constitution simply states that the Electoral Commission shall compile the voters' register, and review it from time to time in accordance with the law. From the contention of the National Democratic Congress, this phraseology, this coinage in the Constitution could only mean that the Electoral Commission has no power to be compiling voters' register at its whim, and that even if voters' registers have to be reviewed or compiled, they ought to be done in accordance with law. And the supreme law of Ghana being the Constitution, the Electoral Commission could only review the existing register on stated grounds and in accordance with law. That was the first clarification the NDC sought. The NDC also went on to argue before the court that if the Electoral Commission's position that only persons with valid passports and national identification cards can be registered, can have their names on the voters' roll, and that these persons, when they have had their names on the voters' roll, can then vouch for others. If this position was accepted, it will lead to disenfranchising many Ghanaians. having regard to the fact that the issue of the national identity card is not complete. And indeed, at the time that the NDC spoke, more than 7 million Ghanaians had not been able to obtain the national identity card. They also argued that of the population of about 30 million people, only about 4 million, including those who were disqualified by virtue of the fact that they were not more than 18 years and above, had passports. And therefore, to limit the source document to passport and national ID card will lead to disenfranchising many, many Ghanaians. These were the two things that the NDC put before the Supreme Court for determination. Somehow, and I find it extremely strange, one of the early decisions taken by the Supreme Court was that the NDC had to choose between the two reliefs. The NDC had to decide for itself whether it wanted them to interpret Article 45A of the Constitution, or it wanted the Supreme Court to decide whether or not the old voters' card can be used in the new registration exercise. Of course, the National Democratic Congress chose the latter and abandoned the fundamental constitutional case, which was the interpretation of Article 45A of the Constitution. Then somehow, a citizen of Ghana who also has rights to go to the Supreme Court went to the Supreme Court and reinstated the case for interpretation of Article 45A. So there were two persons before the Supreme Court, the National Democratic Congress and the individual Ghanaian. Then the Supreme Court decided, having compelled the NDC to make a choice between the two reliefs it was seeking, then decided to merge, or what do they say in legal terms, to join the two cases. So by the Supreme Court's own action, it was joining the two cases that it had reduced to one for determination. That again sounded a little strange. Then in the course of all of its deliberations, the Supreme Court came up and said it had adjourned its verdict indefinitely. And we were all shocked. The registration exercise is starting on June 30th. So when the Supreme Court says that it's adjourning the giving of its decision indefinitely, what does that mean? Because it could well mean that the decision will be given 5 years later. Be that as it may, the Supreme Court gave its verdict much, much earlier, before the exercise commenced. What is interesting is that the day the Supreme Court gave its judgment, the National Democratic Congress claimed victory, and the New Patriotic Party claimed victory, and the Electoral Commission also claimed victory. I was totally confused. So I tried to get friends of mine who were lawyers to help me in understanding the decision of the Supreme Court. And the lawyers were even more confused. Some of the lawyers I spoke to said, well, the Supreme Court has decided that we should use the old voter registration card as a source document. Some said no. Some said the NDC has been vindicated in the Supreme Court. Some said no, the NDC case had been thrown out of the Supreme Court. All of us were confused. The next morning, a lawyer who has been writing a lot on legal matters and so on, who happens to be, I think, the chief executive officer of the CDD, wrote an opinion piece, which was more than interesting. And in that opinion piece, he simply urged judges of the Supreme Court to understand that when they give verdict, when they give judgments and so on, they do that for the whole country and not just lawyers. And therefore, they have a duty to be simple in the language they use. They have a duty to make sure that they write unambiguous judgments, judgments which all of us can understand. That was an interesting point. But you see, the striking thing is that even the lawyers were confused. So we cannot presume that the Supreme Court wrote its decision in a language which only lawyers could understand, because the lawyers themselves were confused. Be that as it may, all of us have come to accept that what the Supreme Court did, no matter what it did, the effect of that is to allow the Electoral Commission to compile a new voters' register on its own terms. When I read the decision, the summary of the decision of the Supreme Court, I was a bit worried. Because people who study law know that one of the most important principles in law is the principle which is described as purposive interpretation of the law. That in interpreting the law, you don't have to look at the black and white alone, not just the letters of the law, but you have to situate the law within all the things that are happening in society. So that when judges make decisions, that decision should sit well with our culture, it should sit well with our politics, it should sit well with common sense, it should sit well with our aspirations as a people and so on. And that principle has come to be known as the purposive interpretation of law. Indeed, the Minister for Information has even gone one step further. The Minister for Information is not just talking about purposive interpretation of the law, he is talking about modern purposive interpretation of the law. Purposive interpretation of the law can only be one thing. It cannot be ancient and modern. But the minister decided to go one step by calling something modern purposive interpretation of the law. Of course, the Supreme Court has decided, and who am I? Of course, the law gives every citizen the right to disagree with the Supreme Court, and I disagree with the Supreme Court. The law also gives the plaintiffs in this matter, the petitioners in this matter, the right to apply for a review of the Supreme Court decision. And here, it is important for us to understand that there is a hierarchy of laws, and there is a hierarchy of courts, and so on. And that when a 7-member panel of the Supreme Court sits on an issue and makes a determination, it cannot be the final decision. Because the petitioners, the plaintiffs, can appeal for review, which normally or usually involves the full bench of the Supreme Court. Here, the principle is that the law itself recognizes that judges are only human and that judges can make mistakes. Judges have interests, and based on their interest, they may be biased and so on. And that is why when your case is determined at the level of the High Court, you can go to the Court of Appeal. And when you go to the Court of Appeal, it is not only one judge who sits on the matter, but 3 judges. And that when you are not satisfied with the decision of the Court of Appeal, you can still go to the Supreme Court. And on the Supreme Court, you can have as many as 11 judges or the full bench sitting on the case. And at that level, the decision is made by voting. So, for example, you can take a case to the Supreme Court and find that 2 are in favor and 5 are against. They are all Supreme Court judges. They all learned the same law. So how come that 2 agree and 5 disagree? Because the law is not an exact science. Because people's own religion, people's own culture, people's own upbringing, and so on, people's place in society, people's understanding of the world, and so on, goes into the interpretation of the law. And that is why it is possible, even at the Court of Appeal, sometimes to have a 2-1 decision. Of course, there are times when they have unanimous decisions. But even unanimous decisions can be overturned by higher courts, and so on. So this is just to make the point that judges are very important for the running of our society. This is to make the point that we collectively have adopted the Constitution, which says that when there are disputes about our law and so on, the final arbiter should be the Supreme Court. But at the same time, we recognize that judges are not infallible, that judges can also make mistakes and so on. Now, when I read the summary of the decision of the Supreme Court, I was struck by one statement. The Supreme Court said, we have decided that the compilation of a new register should go ahead. And that in making this decision, we have arrived at the conclusion that even though there may be more efficient and better ways of doing the registration exercise, for as long as the Electoral Commission has not broken any law, they cannot be stopped. Hey, the Supreme Court acknowledges that there can be better ways of doing the same thing. But for as long as the Electoral Commission has not broken any law, they cannot be stopped. I'm not a lawyer, just an ordinary flipping journalist. But the law, they say, must make sense. So how can you have a law which says that even though there may be better ways of doing things, we should do things the wrong way because it doesn't infringe the law? What then happened to the purposive interpretation of law, the principle of purposive interpretation of law? I'm totally lost. Of course, I'm here this evening as a last-minute substitute, and indeed a very bad last-minute substitute because I'm not a lawyer. But these are my worries as a Ghanaian. These are my worries as a Ghanaian, and every Ghanaian has a right to try and understand the laws of our country and to insist on the proper application of the law. Now the Supreme Court has decided, the registration exercise has started, and I'm frightened. I am really, really frightened by the effects of this decision. One, the exercise is 24 hours old. We have all seen videos of the exercise, and we have all seen the fact that the protocols for fighting against COVID-19 have not been observed at all. We've seen old men and women in the queues, and we know that old men and women are more susceptible to attack by COVID-19, and indeed are more likely to die than younger people and so on. And what we have seen in the videos is completely shocking. If at the end of this exercise, the COVID-19 infections does not balloon out of proportion, it will be a miracle. Because from all the signs we know about the disease, this reckless mass gathering of people is a death sentence for many people. Now, this is happening partly because the Supreme Court gave the go-ahead. How come that the Supreme Court did not take into consideration the COVID-19 situation? Purposive interpretation of the law again. Now, what is likely to happen beyond COVID-19? This registration exercise has also ignited ethnic rivalry, ethnic contest, and so on, in a manner which is shocking. This reckless attack on people in the Volta region, especially people in the Ketu South municipality, has brought about some ethnic dimensions which are absolutely frightening and threaten to undo all that the government of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah did in the 9-year period that Osagyefo led this country. And today, I'm really frightened about the ethnic sentiments that have been expressed. And indeed, it has become legitimate. Before this compilation of the voters' register, if people spoke in terms of ethnicity, they felt shy. They were ducking for cover. They had to find ways of bringing such issues up and so on. Now it is free for all and everybody is talking rubbish. That is where we are. That is where we are. The ethnic sentiments which have been excited by this registration exercise are extremely worrying. I want to submit that we have not seen the end of this registration exercise, and that this registration exercise has the potential of undermining the democratic institutions that we have built in this country. I want all of us to think about so many possible scenarios. Let us say that at the end of this exercise, if it turns out that Eastern Region, for example, managed to register 98% of eligible voters, and the Volta region was only able to register 70% of eligible voters, what will happen? What is the kind of interpretation which will be put on the exercise? What will the spin doctors and propagandists do? And what will be the effect of that on our national politics and our effort to nurture democratic practice in Ghana? Already, yesterday morning, we had reports that people in the Volta region were enthusiastically participating in the voter registration exercise. But at the same time, we had reports from Have in the Volta region indicating that the machines did not work until 10 a.m. And we've had reports from Odododio about the confrontation between NPP and NDC over the interpretation of the law with regards to the registration exercise. Yesterday, a crew of Pan-African television was viciously attacked by a woman who was named as Amma and who claimed to be working with national security and who appeared to be solely interested in destroying the cameras of Pan-African television. Yesterday, Mr. Collins Dauda, former Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, was viciously attacked. And the reports we are getting is that pepper was poured into his eyes. And this was only the first day of the exercise. Comrades, what can I say today? We wish Ghana the best. We wish the Electoral Commission the best. We wish the governing party the best. and we wish the opposition the best. At the end of the day, the people of Ghana must have the capacity to decide who rules them and who is not given power. That's the right of the people of Ghana. Anything which subverts the right of the people of Ghana to choose their own leaders is an affront to the Constitution. And indeed, the 1992 Constitution enjoins us to do everything within our means to defend our sovereignty and to defend the Constitution. I hope it does not come to that. So at this stage, I will pause. There is a very impromptu presentation, and I accept my handicap. And my primary handicap is that I am not a lawyer. I'm a flipping, innocent journalist shooting my mouth in the public space. So at this stage, I'd like to stop and to invite the studio audience to join this conversation. And then after a while, there may be responses to the studio audience, but we shall also invite those of you watching at home to send your messages to our WhatsApp platform and also to our Facebook page. And we'll read your messages and comments. It is my pleasure to stop here. Can we see the hands of those who want to participate in this discussion? Hands of all those who want to make comments and to ask questions. I see 3. So we'll start with the gentleman in the Che Guevara cap without a face mask. And next time he will not be allowed onto this program if he comes without a face mask. And then we'll go to the gentleman by him wearing a Spartan t-shirt and the gentleman behind him wearing a blue face mask. Please come one after the other.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I have 3 key issues to raise in respect of what has been happening within the Ghanaian political landscape. The first is that as a citizen, I want to be very critical of our institutions that have been given the mandate by the people. And the institution at the forefront in this process at the moment is the judiciary. And looking at the judiciary, you can see that it will seem it is the most undemocratic institution in the bourgeois state, because those who are there are not directly elected by the people. But when it comes to critical moments, it is that institution that is being used to delegitimize the very process and the people to participate in the democratic process. And this seems to have been very classic in this issue that we are discussing today. This is my understanding of the ruling. I've been also trying to look at the summary of the ruling, and this is my basic understanding. The ruling of the Supreme Court, if you look at it, it is very lawful. But to the extent that you see that the law is being used to manipulate the democratic process is where my criticism would come. Because the Supreme Court had earlier ruled that under the previous CI, that the current voters' ID was the credible base document to identify someone as a Ghanaian. But that happened under the previous CI. What they did very cleverly was to immediately rush in with a different CI to go and, confront the previous one, so that the current CI that was rushed to Parliament under a period where there was a lot of conversations around COVID-19, where members of Parliament were even reported to have had COVID-19, they rushed them in to go and pass in that CI. So that CI then overruled the previous CI based on which they gave the current ruling. So yes, it might look lawful, but if you look at it, it was a deliberate attempt by these institutions, which are very connected under bourgeois democracy, to delegitimize the democratic process. But comrades and friends, these moments are not new. It has always happened. And it is important to say that it raises our consciousness, it raises our understanding as to how much the electoral process are not the processes that will lead fundamental change and address the needs of the Ghanaian people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, comrade. I think this is one of the few moments when you are not too proud to be a Ghanaian. You're not too happy that you are tagged with, Nkrumah is Ghana, that we should all be proud about. My major concern, first of all, is the fact that, and it's the court's ruling. I like Comrade Kwesi rightly said, I can disagree with them, which I do disagree with them, that to the extent that the court rules in favor of using national identity card and that of a passport to register and leave out birth certs, I was scandalized. I was shocked, because there is no passport in this country that was not made on the basis of birth cert. So, well, like he has rightly said, we have to wait 21 days, like they said, to come up with explanations of why they took that decision. The other thing I want to know quickly is that when they come up with their decision, explanations of their decisions, and the NDC party, which took the case to court, decides to seek redress, and then a full bench is constituted that comes to say, look, we disagree with the first decision, what becomes our fate? That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Good evening, comrade. I quite remember when the former President Obama came here and he said we should allow the institutions of this country should work. Anytime these political parties, especially the MPP, they comes into power, they hijack all the institutions. Me particular, I knew that NDC, the case that he sent to the Supreme Court, they are going to lose. Yes, because they are in charge of everything. Tell me which institution in this country is independent? If we have given all the powers to the president, which institution? None of the institutions are independent in this country. So I knew definitely that NDC is going to lose this case. If we don't allow the institutions to work in this country, our country will never move forward. The police, whatever. Because we have given so much power to the president that he chooses everything. I don't know when the constitution will be amended so that they can take away some of the powers from the president. Because this political party, look, even anytime the MPP comes into power, they divide this country. I hope some of you have been to the registration centers. Go and see what is happening. Look at the mess that they have caused this country. In fact, it's very annoying. And now what they are saying, they are not saying what they are doing for this country, but rather they are just dividing us with tribal politics now. All because of the Supreme Court have already given the judgment. Thank you very much.
We want to take a few messages from Facebook, and then we come back to the studio audience. And the first message is from Michael Ayeku. And Michael Ayeku says, "Great job." And then he adds my name. Nathaniel Saki writes, "A true statesman, wisdom is talking." Then Harun Bachelor says, "Thanks, man." Then Achima Hammond, I hope I got it right, says, "Uncle Kwesi, what happens if a sitting parliamentarian resigns or passes on as a constitutional requirement in 21 days, there should be a by-election? As at now, technically, EC don't have a register. Won't there be a constitutional crisis?" And it's Achimfa from Tamale. If somebody would like to answer that, that would be interesting. Then this is from Dra Wobube. Elastic. Man is called Elastic. And Elastic says, "My mentor, great work." Whoa. Larry Yobi writes, "Leadership has been thrown to the dogs in this country." Kenneth Adevu, very brilliant in the submission. Michael Ayeku writes, "LOL." Dennis Y. Akwete or Akwete is spelled Akoetey. Yeah? Akwete. This is the first time seeing Akwete spelled like that. He says, "Hello, Uncle Kwesi. For the records, the current interpretation Act 2009 Act 792 introduces the modern purposive approach for the interpretation of legislation and all written instruments, and this can be found in Section 10, subsection 1C of the Act. So the Minister of Information was right." So there's even a modern purposive interpretation of the law. And he ends by saying, "Shalom." Agnet Mensa Bonsu writes, "Your candid presentation brings illumination. It's very pathetic, like we are in a banana republic." Nashika. Nashika says, "I just love watching this man. He is excellent." Ohima Evelyn writes, "Best topic." Johnson Kuma writes, "Mr. Pratt, God bless you for good work you are doing for our mother Ghana. Some of us lose hope in EC, NIA, and our highest court because these institutions are losing their credibility on my face." Well done, Robert, or well done, Robert. I'm not sure. Well done, Mr. Pratt. It is certainly clear that the citizens of Ghana have lost their right to decide the well-being of Ghana. I'm ashamed to be called a Ghanaian. Musa Pouso, Pouso. Their reason is just one. They are interested in making money. No. There's no basis for this allegation, and I would not repeat it. Ohima Evelyn, you are making more sense. God bless you, brother. Francisca Ametepe, I don't know what is wrong with the MPP. Wow, I've never seen this name before. And I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a name which is spelled ERCANMCLEAN. Ekan McLean Erickson. I hope I pronounced it right. Good evening, my uncle. And there's something in addition. I want someone to ask the Supreme Court for us. Now that birth certificate is an illegal identity document, so what document of proof will one provide when he or she or her age, when his or her age is being challenged as a minor? Kojo Kumsen writes, tribalism and corruption at its peak. Ohima Evelyn is watching us live from Romania, Bucharest. Edward Dangote writes, Master Kwesi, I'm completely impressed, even though you've gathered just a few comrades for the program. I'm convinced that you've organized the finest of minds, and their contributions are completely superb. Thank you, Massa. And we have Lyndon Johnson. And Lyndon Johnson writes, another wonderful analysis made by the first person who was given the platform to contribute after Uncle Kwesi's remarks. Then Akwensivi Cosmos. Right. Oh, my Kwesi Pratt. What does that mean? David Cletus Tamacro. We are very proud of you, Uncle, watching you from Germany, Cletus Tamacro. Salam writes, Kelly made us aware of the deployment, so we are not surprised, but the Lord God will see us through. Voltarians would use plan B, so no one should be surprised. Ewun Toma Somalia Issa, God will save our country come December 7th, inshallah. Ben Kofi, Ghanaians, please share the video for ASO. This name is not clear. It's because I don't know whose telephone I'm using. The screen is broken into pieces. I don't know whose telephone I'm using, and sometimes it's very difficult to read. And this is from Ben Kofi. Ben Kofi says that Ghanaians, please share the video for us. Sai Daru, hello everyone. I just wanted to ask if the NDC really thought the Supreme Court was going to judge fairly. It is sad they could not see the judgment even before they were taking the case to court. God shall judge. Wolano Akwetia, and Wolano Akwetia writes, it is government's intention to protect our identities as proud citizens of Ghana, and for that matter, it is priority to remember to respect protocols and adhere to safety precautions. John Dubache says, well done. Mohammed Yahya says, Thank you for something. I can't read. Abdul Razak, thanks for educating us. God bless you. And then Charles Odoy, leave the party negatively from this and think right. What does that mean? Frank D. Aziavo, Uncle Kwesi, MP people always want to look smart during the lockdown. They try to psych our mind that almost all the people arrested at the borderline have tested COVID-19. Tavia Williams, watching you from the USA, Atlanta. Aite Daniel, as they try to rig the upcoming election, I pray no Ghanaian loses what money can buy, our lives. Abdul Hakim Abdul Karim, so is our president happy with what is going on? Ohima Evelyn, better we turn a Supreme Court into, oh, Ohima, I beg you. I'm in Ghana. I beg. So there are many messages, and we shall be doing a few of our WhatsApp messages. If there are any comments, from the audience, we will take them. The WhatsApp messages are coming plenty. There are so many messages. My goodness. So many messages. So many messages. Any contributions? Whilst I sort out the WhatsApp messages. Anybody who has a comment or question to ask? Okay, so let's move to the WhatsApp messages. Wow. Frederick Opoku, Mr. Pratt, are we safe as citizens? I'm asking you because you speak for the voiceless. It is certainly clear that the citizens of Ghana have lost their right to decide the well-being of Ghana. I'm ashamed to be called a Ghanaian, and this is from Robert. Kenneth Adewu, I think next time we should get somebody else to read the messages. A true mentor, very brilliant, all submissions and so on. Votarians have no plan. Where is their JJ they voted for all these years? He is with the MPP. LOL. We are very proud of you, watching you from Germany. In Sako Awari, you always make my day when I hear you speaking. Please continue your good works. Musa Pozo, we've read the message already. John Kweku Sabi says, wisdom is speaking. We are watching from Denmark. Leadership has been thrown to the dogs in this country. Watching you live from Abuja, and this is Daniel Issel. Nana Kwame, watching you live from London. Agnes Mensah Bonsu, your candid presentation brings illumination. It's very pathetic, like we are in a banana republic. And Kodo Somoa is watching us from Qatar. And there's a question, what is the EC? What is the EC during Europa for other Ghanaians abroad? Ben Kofi, I want to ask those who are living in Europe, can they vote? Socrates Cicero. Nana Addo rushed into presidency and is now rushing into Hague. Kobe Ejapon, it is sad how the NPP has succeeded in manipulating state institutions to do their bidding. Peter Richardson, good evening. I'm Richardson, watching live from the UK, indeed from Luton. Somebody says, more fire. There's no fire here. Another person is Sif Bandago, watching live from the UK. Francisca Ametope, I don't know what is wrong with the NPP. Sir Douglas, Ghana is now turning into something else. Thank you for your excellent presentation. Kwame. Somebody writes, Kwame. We don't change a winning register, but owning Nanado is changing a winning register. This register has won you an election. Why change it? Why change it? Aite Daniel, as they try to rig the upcoming elections, I pray no Ghanaian loses what money cannot buy, our lives. Wow. Charles Odoy, leave the party negativity from this and think right. So many messages. Well, comrades, we have very, very little time. And if you have comments or questions, we'll just take 3 and draw the curtains down. Hands up. But we'll be repeating the same people who... All the beautiful ladies in the studio. Okay, so we start from the gentleman in the white shirt. Anybody else? The gentleman in the Che Guevara cap and one lady. Fantastic. So please...
Thank you very much. I would like to make a very quick observation, and it has to do with a publication today. And I don't know the time of its implementation, but the NIA is said to be rolling out a certain package of premium registration of, a premium package for its registration, pegged at 250 Ghana cedis. I'm sure the assumption is that it is going to be much faster than. So this now presents us with an even more difficult and a very serious situation, where the base document for registration as a voter is now almost available to the highest bidder. And let me explain. If you, all it takes is money to enable a political party to register as many people in its stronghold, your guess is as good as mine. And as I was sitting there, I just did a quick math that all it takes is 50 million Ghana cedis to get as many as 200,000 people per the rate, to get as many as 200,000 people registered. And I dare say 50 million Ghana cedis is no money as far as that level is concerned. Yes, some parties are concerned. And that itself presents a fundamental challenge to the tenets of our democracy. It actually now has taken the idea of monetizing our politics to another level. It is no longer a question of giving money to people to make their own independent decisions. In fact, it starts at the level of validating somebody to vote itself. So I think that this is a worrying trend, and the earlier we look at it, the better. Thank you.
Good evening, viewers and comrades. Talking about the verdict of the Supreme Court, the voters' registration has started. Yesterday, I went to some of the registration centers, and then looking at things that the protocols are not being observed. Talking about the social distancing, people wear the masks and keep it as how I have it on now. Now, you look at all this and you think that the verdict is going to cause more harm than good to the country. Now, I want to ask, if someone comes out to gather all this evidence, I think today I saw in a news that 20 people showed signs of COVID-19 at one of the registration centers, and those people were taken to the various hospitals. Now, I want to ask, some people don't show symptoms of COVID-19. They can even mix with the people and maybe share it to other people. If you put together all this evidence, can you challenge the verdict of the Supreme Court?
What I have this time is a question. I want to know, people have been voting for some time now. Now they are being called upon to come and show proof that they are Ghanaians before they vote. What is the constitutional view on what it takes to be a citizen?
I don't know why you are refusing to listen to all the things I said from the beginning. I'm not a lawyer. Now you are testing my law, and I have none. As a matter of fact, the common explanation of who a Ghanaian is if your parents happen to be Ghanaian. But even if your parents happen to be Ghanaian, you can renounce your citizenship. You understand? You can decide that you are no longer a Ghanaian. And then you can also acquire Ghanaian citizenship, and there are various conditions for acquiring Ghanaian citizenship. One of it is that you must speak a local language, you must have been resident here for some time, and so on. You understand? But the definition of citizenship is a matter of law. It's a matter of law. One of the issues which has come up very strongly is simply this. The Electoral Commission's mandate is to organize elections. Okay? The Electoral Commission has no mandate to decide who a citizen is. The Electoral Commission is not the supervisory agency over the Department of Births and Deaths. So if the Registrar of Births and Deaths issues a certificate, the Electoral Commission cannot say that it's not valid. It has no such power. And yet by this decision, the Electoral Commission now is determining who is a citizen and who is not a citizen. And that's a huge problem and so on. In any case, time is fast spent. And first and foremost, we'd like to thank all of you in the 32 countries that we broadcast to. That is on television. We broadcast to the whole world on social media, but we broadcast to 32 countries on television. And for all of you who are watching us, we'd like to say we are most grateful to you. We are grateful to you for joining this program. You are the people who make this program what it is, and we truly value your contribution. From the director of the show, and I'm told that today the show is directed by Darren, from all our camera people, because our camera people includes, some beautiful ladies and young men and so on, from the makeup artists, from everybody from Pan-African Television, and also from the Socialist Forum of Ghana who sponsored this program, we'd like to say thank you very much, and please keep your dial on Pan-African Television, because the best in everything comes from Pan-African Television. Best in news, best in current affairs, best in sports, and best in everything. See you again next week for another edition of Wednesday Palaver.